Good Saturday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's weather forecast, I will be covering my March forecast for 2023, including the climate pattern update. Is the 3-year La Nina over, and where are we trending? Are we trending to neutral or an El Nino type of weather pattern? And then a March outlook of 2023. I will take you through my weekly temperature and precipitation trends, and then my official March forecast for 2023 with temperatures, precipitation, and an overall outlook towards the end of this video. But if you guys are not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button down below, guys. Again, I cover all of North America, including Canada, the United States, and the tropics during tropical weather season. So hit that subscribe button down below, guys. And do not forget to press the like button. It's the thumbs up button down below the video. It helps to distribute this video around to as many people as possible across YouTube. So definitely hit the subscribe button and the like button, guys. I definitely appreciate it. But looking first at the climate pattern trends here, going all the way back to December of 2022, we were in a La Nina, and actually we have been in a 3-year La Nina, but we are finally trending a little bit closer there towards neutral conditions here with the latest update. We're still in a weak La Nina at negative 0.410, and that does mean we're getting very close to zero here. Whenever you see zero, that is neutral, and then positive values, that is what we call an El Nino. So looking at the sea surface temperatures here and where the equator is, that is where we look for an El Nino, a La Nina, or even neutral conditions. And right now, it is trending neutral. You see some colder waters, but then you also see warmer anomalies as well. So when you have both of those combined, you do have neutral conditions. But we will turn warmer eventually toward the equatorial Pacific Ocean, which will trend toward El Nino, I do think, towards the late summer, even early fall of 2023. But looking here at the 7-day sea surface temperature change, it does look like overall the waters are starting to warm up ever so slightly across the central Pacific Ocean here. Even a warmer blob of waters up here in the north of the Hawaiian Islands. That is something to note with our weather patterns moving forward as well. But if you look at the consolidation of all the climate models and put them all together, we are all trending towards neutral conditions here, at least through the middle and end of spring. And I do think we do flip to an El Nino, at least a weak El Nino, by the time we get into the late summer and early fall potentially of 2023. So definitely flipping the script from La Nina to El Nino, and that is something we'll have to keep an eye on going through the spring and summer months. But now we look at the March temperature climatology here, and what we expect usually for Marches on average. Usually for March, you see the colder temperatures to the north and the milder spring-like temperatures starting to emerge across the Gulf Coast and the southeast. Every once in a while, we have those warmer temperatures moving farther north, but this is climatologically how March does set up. And also looking at the March precipitation outlook climatologically, it does look wetter across especially the eastern 2/3 of the country here and the southeast. And then it also looks much wetter across the Pacific West Coast here as well, from Washington State down through Western Oregon State and Northern California. And that is what we'll have to contend with going through the month of March. So let's take you week by week and what you can expect here with the temperature and precipitation trends. It does look like that March 4th from today through March 10th, it does look predominantly warmer across eastern Canada and the eastern United States, and much cooler across the west and portions of western Canada as well, going through March 10th timeframe. But looking at the precipitation anomaly during this time frame through March 10th, it does look wetter across the north from the upper Midwest through the northern plains and parts of the West Coast. And it also has a secondary area of wetter weather here across the Ohio Valley, the eastern Great Lakes, and parts of New England, with drier conditions underneath that across the central Gulf Coast states, getting up through the eastern Carolinas, even Virginia up here, and even Florida as well. Much drier going through March 10th. So looking at the potential storm track through March 10th here, it looks like the main zone for low pressure systems will originate across the Pacific Northwest, dive down across the Central Plains, and then take a left-hand turn up here through the Ohio Valley and New England. To the north of that track, we'll have the colder air, so we'll have snow showers and a potential for a couple of lighter snow events with, some 3 to 6 inch type of snow events at times. We'll continue to watch that. Drier across across the Pacific Southwest, and then a lot of rainy conditions across the southeast here with those storm tracks moving a little bit farther up to the north, pulling in all that warmer air from the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. But now we go to March 10th through the 17th time frame. So this takes us into the middle of March, and we start to see what we call a sudden stratospheric warming event that does start to take place here with that did actually occur back a couple of weeks ago. That is transferring from the stratosphere all the way down to where we live in the troposphere, and we start to feel the effects of that sudden stratospheric warming event at the surface now going through the middle of March. So we have the colder spill, an Arctic blast as we call it, across the western Canadian provinces, down through the central Gulf Coast states here, and even the eastern two-thirds of the country as well. And we're going to be dampening that ridge farther south, but also looking at a very energetic jet stream across the west coast here. A atmospheric river is possible across California, portions of Oregon, even Washington State, and that even lingers eastward toward Nevada and Utah as well. And then a secondary area of wet weather across the mid-Mississippi Valley down towards the central Gulf Coast states through that March 17th timeframe. So now looking at that potential storm track from March 10th through the 17th, it does look like it's a little bit farther south here towards the lee side of the Rockies, and then kicking out across the southern central plains on up through the lower Ohio Valley, and then parts of that I-95 corridor with the track of these low pressure systems. Much more snow up here across the Pacific Northwest, the upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes. There is a chance of a couple of bigger snowstorms up here to the north if we get that stronger low pressure system to develop and pull up more moisture towards the middle of March. But farther south, we have the rainfall here. Again, we have all that warmer air. So Texas, over here to the central Gulf Coast states, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Florida, all these guys will see some rain, maybe some thunderstorms at times during this time frame. But now we go here toward the second half of the month. So this is March 17th through the 24th. It does look colder across the east. That is a given here with the lingering effects of that colder air with that Arctic blast. But over top of that, we have some blocking mechanisms with high pressure up here into central and northern Canada. That's going to make it warmer than normal across places up to the north, and also warmer across the west here, warmer than average during this time frame. So that is something to keep an eye on. But it also looks active across the west, especially the Pacific Northwest, with still those lingering effects from that atmospheric river toward the second half of March. And it looks kind of like a mishmash of a wild card here of whether it'll be near normal, drier than normal, or above normal across the eastern two-thirds of the country remains to be seen. But it does look predominantly wetter, I do think, across the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida during this time frame. So looking at the potential storm track, there are two potential tracks that these low pressure systems could take, I think, from March 17th through the 24th. The main track will be up here across portions of Northern California, diving down across the Rockies and then on up through the Midwest and the Great Lakes. To the north of the track, we still have that cold air, so we'll have more snowstorm potential again across the northern plains, the Pacific Northwest, and the upper Midwest. And then that secondary track will be down here across East Texas, the Southeast, and then on up the East Coast. This would be a perfect setup for a nor'easter, or a big winter storm across the Northeast here during that second half of March there through the 24th time frame. We could have some wet weather down here into Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas. That will be possible, especially if the secondary track does take place. And that would also bring the heavy rain down here into the eastern Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida during that time frame. But now we finally get toward the very last week in March. This is March 24th through the 31st. It does look like we warm up. We start to introduce some spring-like temperatures here. Usually after an Arctic blast, you see a rebound, and that does look like we will see that across most of the country here, most of the lower 48 and Canada during this time frame. So definitely seeing some spring-like temperatures to round out March, but it also looks near normal for much of us here. An exception to the southeast might be a little drier than normal at times, but most of the North America rather will be pretty near normal with the precipitation going into that last week in March. So that is something to take note of. And looking at the potential storm track during that last week in March, it does look active still across a lot of the country here, with the main storm track across the lee side of the Rockies, turning southeast towards central Texas, and then taking that left-hand hook up across portions of the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, and interior New England, with a severe weather outbreak possible across the southeast or the Gulf Coast, I think, across that last week in March. Rainfall, a colder rain up here across the mid-Mississippi Valley, the western Great Lakes, and then some snow setting up into those higher elevations across the Pacific Northwest with some of that lingering cooler air. But again, we will be even warming up across those areas as well. So some of that snow will transfer to rain in those lower elevations by that last week in March. But overall, this is NOAA Climate Prediction Center's forecast for temperatures through March. It does look below normal across the Pacific Northwest and much of the northern United States, all the way across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast. Equal chances of above or below normal temperatures across the southern plains to the Tennessee Valley, and then all the way down across the immediate Gulf Coast and the Southeast, including Florida. This will be the place to go for vacations for warmer temperatures. This will be, again, warmer than normal throughout the month of March when you average it all out. Looking at the precipitation outlook from the NOAA Climate Prediction Center, it does look above normal across the west here and across the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys, with active storm tracks moving across these areas. We definitely have to watch out for more rain and even some snowfall even through the month of March. And here's my March temperature forecast. I do think it'll be below normal across most of the north central United States, but a much below normal area here across portions of the Pacific Northwest, the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and then parts of the Ohio Valley and interior New England, especially with that Arctic blast moving in. I think it'll be around average across the southwest to the southern plains here, and then a little area of above normal temperatures right there toward this the immediate Gulf Coast and especially Florida. This will be the place to go in March here throughout the rest of the month for vacations if you want some warmer weather. And then here's my March precipitation forecast for 2023. It's going to be active. We're going to have 2 storm tracks at times. I think it'll be active across the Pacific Northwest, but much above average precipitation from the southern plains through the mid-Mississippi Valley here on up through portions of the eastern Great Lakes and interior New England through the end of the month. And I think around average here across the southeast and the desert southwest during this time frame. And this does even include South Texas across the Rio Grande Valley by the time we get through the month of March. So that's kind of averaging it all out. But looking now at severe weather climatology for early March, usually this starts across the central Gulf Coast states and migrates farther north and westward. By the middle of March here, this starts to move a little bit farther up toward the Missouri Valley, the southern plains, and parts of the lower Ohio Valley. But then by the time we get into late March now, the 30th, 31st time frame, and then turning the page to early April, then we start to see more widespread climatology for severe weather here across the southern plains, the Missouri Valley, and this time could be moving up into the southern Great Lakes regions. We might have to worry about some severe weather towards late March, at least according to climatology. And looking at my severe weather forecast through the month of March, the frequency of severe weather events across these areas, I think it'll be 2 times higher for the frequency of severe weather from Texas all the way to Virginia here, with a little bit of a higher zone of frequency, 4 times higher than climatology, from northeast Texas through portions of Tennessee here and much of the central Gulf Coast states, and perhaps as far east as the western Carolinas. So that is my thoughts on the severe weather and the frequency of severe weather events going through the month of March. And then putting my official March forecast of 2023 together, I think it'll be very soggy across much of the West Coast here and the Pacific Northwest, especially with that very active jet stream across the west. Heavy rain across the southwest here across the Four Corners region. Definitely going to be seeing some flooding conditions here. Plenty of snow with bigger snowstorms across the north. That is a given across the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and interior New England. I think severe weather will definitely be more frequent across the southern plains and the central Gulf Coast states, and then warm with storms in between here across the Ohio Valley, the East Coast, and the Southeast. going through the month of March. To recap my weather forecast for you guys, we looked at the climate pattern update. It is trending out of that 3-year La Nina back to neutral conditions and then eventually to an El Nino, at least a weak El Nino for late summer into early fall of 2023. My March outlook here with temperature and precipitation trends, and then I showed you the official March forecast for 2023 with temperatures, precipitation, and my overall March outlook in this video. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I definitely appreciate it. If you guys liked the video, press the thumbs up down below. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. Have a great Saturday, everybody, a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you all in the next video.